So, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Yes She Can project. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have the gorgeous Rosie Nixon joining me today. So, first of all, you're the former editor in chief at Hello magazine. There's just so much to go through. You're a multiple times author, and one thing that I did notice, Rosie, that you don't market yourself as is a philanthropist, because I
Oh,
think that is so intertwined in everything that you do, and I really think that you are. So I think you need to add it to your website.
thank you. That is so nice to hear. I'm glad that that is coming through because our connection was made online, wasn't it?
Yeah,
In the Instagram world. So that's really nice to hear. Thank you. It's great to be
definitely.
here.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I'm so excited, honestly. So let's kind of, there's so much to unpick. Can we like scoot back to the beginning? How did you get into the industry in the first place? Because your first like big magazine job was at Barbie magazine, wasn't it? Which is insane.
Yeah, which is quite funny, isn't it? Given Barbie's been having a moment again in the
She
last
has,
sort of
yeah.
year or so. Yeah, that's right. I guess I was always a kind of writer from a young age, and my mum
Okay.
always sort of says, looking back, that I was always kind of writing letters and notes to people and keeping
Oh,
diaries and
yeah.
fashioning my own magazine out of cutting out songs from smash hits. And
Oh,
so I think writing was probably in my blood from a young age. And then I ended up, after graduating, I went to Sussex University and read history. And then, like
okay.
lots of graduates, kind of wasn't completely sure what I wanted to do, was quite interested by the sound of the journalism kind of world, and had been an
Yeah.
avid magazine reader for most of my childhood, really, and, those formative years. But I ended up getting my first job in book publishing, which I did for a few
Okay.
years, working my way up from the unpaid work experience to be a book editor. And then I made my segue across into magazines, seeing this job as editor of Barbie magazine advertised in the Media Guardian, as it was then. It used to come out on a
Okay.
Monday and had all the media jobs in it. So you'd always get that edition of the Guardian and look through and see what vacancies were there. And I had
Right.
no real contacts within that world. So it felt daunting about how I was ever going to break through and get into it. But I just went for
Oh,
it, went for this interview and got the job at Barbie. So yeah, that was a good
my
baptism
goodness.
of fire in the world of magazines. It was just me and a designer, and we did all the pages together. So I spent my days writing stories and word searches and crosswords and
Oh,
all kinds of puzzles and things about Barbie and Ken. And worked with the license owner, which was Mattel,
yeah.
on all of those pages, and really learned everything actually on the ground, doing it day to day about the editorial process. So, from
Wow.
organizing a flat plan and what was going to be on every page, writing the content, editing it,
Goodness
working with
me.
the designer, sending it off to press, working with the marketing teams and the publisher on special offers and free gifts that we had on the front of it. So, it was actually an amazing first job in magazines because I got to
Yeah.
do so much. And then I
That's a
slowly worked my
baptism
way
of
up in
fire,
age.
though, isn't it? It's like
Sorry?
a baptism of fire. Like
Yeah,
that
it
is
was. It
intense
was,
to go in at that
yeah,
level.
that's it. It was being thrown in at the deep end. But I really loved it. And I'd worked in children's books before, so I had a really good understanding of content that was suitable for children and applicable to the right key stages that they were learning at school. So I had a solid background in publishing before that.
Mhm.
And I just loved it. And from then I went on to teenage magazines and just slowly worked my way up in age to Hello.
Oh, is it like Shout magazine? Like that was the day, it back in the day, wasn't it? It was
There was
brilliant.
Shout. Yes, I worked for Bliss magazine. There was Bliss and Just
Yeah.
17 and Ms. and More magazine. Then I went to work at a magazine called Looks, that then
Okay.
became Celebrity Looks. And I worked there helping them with the celebrity content.
Hmm.
And the same at Bliss, actually, at a time when celebrities were beginning to sell the covers of magazines
Yeah.
rather than models. And I would work closely with their publicists and their agents, and got to know lots of people in the industry. Started building my little black book back then by liaising with them and getting them on the cover. So we had Yeah, everybody on the cover, from Julia Stiles, who was a really big sort of teen actress at that time,
Yeah.
to Kelly Osbourne, who was in the
Oh,
Osbournes, which was big
yeah.
on TV, to the boy bands, all kinds of
Take That and
people.
Boyzone. That was that
Yeah,
time, wasn't it?
exactly. And Blue, I remember I did their first ever cover shoot and had them on the front, and the winners of Pop Idol. There was a real
Hmm.
explosion of that kind of TV show around
Yeah,
that time. Yeah, and Gareth Gates
definitely.
won. I remember him coming into our building one day and there being queues of fans all the way around the block.
Oh my
It was a
goodness.
really exciting place to
Mm.
be.
I
Yeah.
bet, like a constant kind of hubbub of
Yeah, well,
activity
print
constantly.
magazines were just so powerful because this was before
Yes.
social media. So it
Hmm.
was your way of communicating with your fan base.
Yeah.
So we were packed with celebrity exclusives and you never seen before photos. It was very easy to protect those exclusives as well because they couldn't,
Right.
not everybody was a paparazzi,
Yeah.
and they couldn't be posted anywhere on social media. So
Hmm.
there was a real demand for appearing in print.
Right.
It's a very different world that we live in now with the publishing
Yeah.
world. So I feel very lucky to have been in magazines throughout
Hmm.
that heyday.
Almost like one of the OGs.
Yeah, exactly. One of the OGs, totally.
So Rosie, when I think of Hello magazine, it kind of conjures up feelings of it's that trust that has been built, I
Mm.
think, with the readers over the years. And it's very much like if I ever wanted any coverage of the royal family, that is where I would go to. I think it's got this air of being superior, I think, and I think it always has done. And do you think that because you've built up the trust with the readers over the years, that's
Mm.
the reason why everybody kind of looks to you as a title
Yeah,
to
well,
give them the
I
information?
think Hello has obviously played the long game. First
Yeah,
came over to the UK in 1988 at a time when
right.
there didn't really exist that kind of society title. And
Hmm.
it has become more and more royal, I would say, over the
Yeah.
years. And obviously, I'm much less involved now since I
Hmm.
stood down from my role as editor-in-chief last year. And I'm now editor at large. But absolutely, we've always worked on building that strong trust between
Yeah.
celebrities and their people and with our audience, as they always come first in everything we do. And the stars know that in working with Hello, they have a really trusted environment and that Hello will
Yeah.
take incredible images and do interviews that might tackle the difficult subjects, but there's a way of doing it in an environment that feels safe and trusted and that will work hand in
Definitely.
hand with people. So that's definitely a USP that's been at the heart of the brand from the beginning.
Mhm.
And I can't see that changing.
No. Oh, and actually, another thing that I meant to say is I remember watching a program with you on it where you brought like children in to be like
Oh,
behind the scenes.
yes. Oh, that was so
Oh, it was
lovely.
amazing.
Yeah, it's called When I Grow Up. That
Yeah.
was, yeah, a few years ago now. And it was such an amazing experience. We had a group of, I think they were all under 9, group
Hmm.
of children from lots of different areas and quite some disadvantaged backgrounds who
Right.
perhaps felt that they would never be able to break into the world of journalism. A bit like I was at the, young age, thinking,
Yeah.
I haven't got parents that can just get me a job there, and it's a
Hmm.
daunting prospect. And so we had this group of 9-year-olds that came to work at Hello for a number of weeks and helped us put an issue together and went out, saw what it was like going on a photo shoot. And they went on a royal engagement. I think they met the King and Queen actually. So that was yeah, he was the Prince of Wales and Camilla at the time.
Hmm.
So that was so much fun. And it was amazing to see just how much they developed and their confidence grew over that period of time,
Hmm.
realizing that they could do this. It was
Yeah,
very
definitely.
emotional, actually. I remember there were a few tears shed at the end, and it was a
Oh,
lovely show that I really, really enjoyed it. That's when
yeah,
you really realize, actually, wow, the impact of what you're doing can have on others. And I do think
100%.
it's so important to inspire younger generations however we can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that's a thread that runs kind of through everything that you do, isn't it? You
Mm.
You've got so many strings to your bow, Rosie.
A bit
Like
too
it's
many strings at the moment.
crazy.
I feel like I need to keep my focus.
It needs to be a bit
But
stringless.
yeah, I do. Maybe I need to go stringless. Yeah, exactly. But this year for me, really, since I left Hello, has all been about finding my feet, seeing the things, seeing what I really enjoy. And I definitely know it's something in that area of inspiring others.
Yeah,
That was the thing I really, really loved about aspects of my job at Hello. I was particularly
mhm,
keen when we supported charitable campaigns and
yeah,
featured inspiring women on our pages. So that is definitely something that I want to keep firmly within my working life.
yeah, definitely. And would you say that the way that your work has evolved has kind of mirrored the way that your personal life has evolved at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really hard to compartmentalize, isn't it? Like for me, work has never just been a job that I do from 9 to 5. And I know that I'm probably very lucky in that because for a lot of people that there is no choice and work is your nine to
Yeah,
five and it's there to pay the bills. I've always wanted more from my working life than that.
mhm,
And I have been lucky to experience that. And so I think as I felt that I was evolving as a midlife woman, and my career needed to evolve as well because I don't
yeah,
ever really want to get stagnant in something. And I'd done
no,
that job at Hello for a very long time, 16
mhm,
years. And I just felt like if my energy and enthusiasm for it isn't there in quite the way that it maybe once was,
yeah,
then it's time to look at doing something else. I'd be,
yeah,
and I'd become very interested in, I mean, I'd always written my books, but again, felt that I never really prioritized the time to write them. So I
okay.
wanted more time to do that. And I did a coaching course, which I absolutely loved and fell
Oh,
in love with everything about it, really. The whole vocabulary of the
yeah,
coaching world really, really appealed to me. So yeah, that has been really fulfilling doing that course and then starting to embark on a coaching journey, and
definitely.
helping to support lots of midlife women.
Yeah, and that's like your niche, isn't it? And like there's so many pivotal moments in our life that we can kind of look at and be like, do you know what? This is when things changed for me.
Hmm.
And in most cases, like our biggest transformations come from like our hardest times, don't they?
Yeah, that
And
is so true.
I know that you experienced something personally before like your journey into becoming a coach. Could you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, that was really, and you're so right that often, the times that challenging us the most often
Mhm.
lead to a period of growth and positivity on the other side, although it's very hard to see that once you're in it.
Yeah,
And for me, it was just a build up, a feeling like I'd been doing something for a very long, long time.
yeah,
Also, running on empty. I think stress can become chronic stress if you never really give yourself time to recover from intense periods. And we're
yes,
all going to
definitely.
have busy times at work. There are times when you think, oh God, I know I've got a really hectic week ahead, but how am I going to get through it? But then you might think, right, I'm going to make sure I've got a really quiet weekend after that, or the
Yeah.
next week isn't so busy, so you can recharge. But I think if you never ever give yourself, as I didn't, I mean, I was kind of running on empty for a very long time, straight
Oh,
into the next thing. And then, yeah, so I got to a point where I experienced what was called psychological exhaustion, which is kind of
yeah.
one step before burnout, because I didn't quite
Mhm.
have all the characteristics of burnout.
Yeah.
But certainly it was my body telling me, right, you need to stop. You need to do
Mhm.
something else. You've not been listening to me, you know.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when we don't listen to that little inner voice that is slowly getting louder and louder, telling us that
Yeah.
perhaps we're not fulfilled in the same way, or we're exhausted, or something needs to change, then
Yeah.
eventually your physical health does pay the price.
Yeah,
So,
because it's almost like our brain goes, do you know what? You haven't listened, so I'm going to force you to stop.
well,
And that's when it can be
exactly.
scary.
It can be scary. And for me, I was very lucky because it wasn't, so bad. I had a number of weeks off work, but then I recharged. And really, for me, it was getting to grips with the deep feelings that I needed to move my career on with the way
Right.
that I was feeling kind of inside. And perhaps it wasn't completely aligned with the person that I was becoming. And
Mhm.
also being compassionate with myself with those thoughts and actually
Yeah.
thinking, that's okay as well.
Mhm.
That is all right. We're allowed to evolve. I firmly believe that life moves through different chapters, but they're not always
Absolutely.
easy to navigate. And I felt
No.
very much kind of scared about how I would unravel myself from this job that I'd had for so long.
Yeah.
And I think that can be very daunting for lots of, the women that get in touch with me experiencing similar feelings. It's
Mhm.
where on earth to start. And
Yeah.
sometimes the big goal feels so big, like knowing that you want to do something else. But, how do you even begin that? They can't
Yeah.
visualize it or see it. So
Mhm.
coaching can be a really useful environment to work through the small steps that you might take to get yourself into that sort of brighter future that is there for you.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think sometimes we can get to a point where we almost lose ourselves, and that rediscovering kind of who we are, what we want out of our
Mm,
lives can feel daunting, but
yeah.
exciting at the same time. So it's almost like sometimes we think that it's all got to be negative, but when we get to that point, it's actually really, really exciting, exhilarating to find out who we are and where we want to go.
Absolutely. I mean, the coaching course that I did was just amazing on so many levels. And, in
Oh,
a large part because of the self-awareness that it
yes.
evoked in me. So I learned so much about myself, as well
Mhm.
as obviously the skill set to then be able to work with others through these kind of issues. And I realized that I'm just so passionate about helping women through transitionary periods
Yeah.
because we all have that possibility within us and we know all
Mhm.
the answers as well. But we
Definitely.
never get the opportunity really to talk it through in any great depth and to be
Mhm.
really, really listened to. So the big part of a coach's role is just to listen on a deep
Definitely.
level and then to ask the right questions that will evoke self-awareness in the client
Mhm.
that you're working with. So I've got lots of plans to help bring this to women on a slightly bigger scale as well, because
Ooh,
obviously there's so
exciting.
much one-to-one coaching that we can do. And
Yeah.
obviously the cost is sometimes prohibitive for people as well. So
Mhm.
I've been thinking about how I can bring groups of women together to work
Yeah.
on these kind of issues in more of a group setting.
Mhm. And I think that's sometimes the the way in which we thrive the most is having that collaborative, supportive group of people who are in exactly the same place that we are, have exactly the same feelings and thoughts that we do. I think one to one is fantastic because you can garner such a deep relationship with that other person and they can know you
Yeah.
inside out. But to have that tribe of people that are going through the motions at the same time is something of great power.
Well, yeah, and that relates sort of very much to my sort of standpoint as a journalist as well, that I'm really a believer in people sharing their stories at the end of the day. And that's what, my role at Hello magazine really was to create the best stories, to have people
Yeah.
sharing these personal moments and the best stories within our pages in a trusted environment. So really it's kind of similar that I'm going to be working with women on sharing their stories, but also hearing from the experts as well and starting
Yeah.
to put tangible steps in place that are
Mhm.
actually really practical, not just being talked at and thinking this doesn't really relate to my life, but actually
Yeah.
making it really super personal to
And
each
immersive.
individual. Yeah, yeah, so that you come away with a few plans and maybe at least a sense of the first steps that you might take on that
Definitely.
journey.
Do you think, Rosie, that's why you niched specifically into women in midlife because
Mm.
you're almost becoming the person that you needed at that time when things
Yeah,
were difficult for
I
you?
think probably some of my experience, and also I'm just very comfortable talking to a midlife audience. I mean, it was our
Yeah,
audience at Hello, and whenever I'm in these kind of environments, and I've spoken at a number of events full of midlife women, I just think
yeah,
and was involved with lots of campaigning around the menopause as well, and
yeah,
I just think we're only just beginning to talk about a lot of these issues in a more public way. And I really felt passionately about amplifying the menopause kind of journey of women through the
yeah,
pages of Hello and with Wellbeing of Women, charity that I'm an ambassador for. And
mhm,
I just think there is so much power in sharing our stories and that
yeah,
lived, learned experience that women have. There's always something that you can take away from that. But that needs to be backed up, obviously, by science and by credible advice, because there's so much online. You know, if you're only listening to opinion on Instagram about
Mhm.
menopause, then you may have, you know, the wrong perspective of it. So you've got to have credible advice in there as well. So I'll bring together the experts with you know, the midlife women that want to come on these day retreats that I'm planning.
Amazing. It sounds fantastic. And I think having that, I think that's maybe what kind of sets you apart, because like you say that so many people can go through the menopause as a whole, but you know, to have like tailored advice and
Mm.
having that expert opinion really helps to kind of solidify the way in which you're teaching.
Well, we're all so different, aren't we? I think this is the thing, and this is what has makes the menopause so hard for many women to navigate, and the perimenopause, which can be a sort of 10-year period of time, that all
Yeah.
our symptoms are going to be very different. Yours will be different to mine, and the dates that
Mhm.
we start them are going to be different, and so it becomes like very confusing for a lot of women.
Definitely.
And the advice, you know, that's out there, it sort of varies as well. There's different ways you can manage those
Yeah.
symptoms, and sometimes just by trying things is the only way that you're going to find out. But the important thing is that you are aware of, you know, the biology of it all, of the
Mhm.
facts, and that there are a number of treatments out there available to help make life a little easier, that you don't have to struggle alone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, for me personally, I have been menopausal since I was 29 because I had a
Oh,
total
wow.
hysterectomy
Yeah.
just before my 30th birthday. And
Wow.
I've really struggled to get that information because I
Mm.
haven't been through the menopause from a natural sense. It was like
Yeah.
surgically induced.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, these kind of conversations and what you're doing to help women is
Yeah.
just brilliant.
Wow. And that must have been a tough time for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
just for your 30th birthday.
It was, yeah, but
Wow.
I think even more so because it about a week or 2 weeks later, I had some test results back, and it turned out that I didn't need the hysterectomy in the
Oh
first
my
place, which
God.
was quite hard to swallow, but
Yeah,
what's
I
done is
bet it
done, you know?
was. Wow, that must have been really difficult. What
Yeah.
kept you going through that time?
I think it was because I had suffered with endometriosis since I was about 19. And then I'd struggled for the diagnosis, and it just been one thing after the other. And I thought to myself, okay, well, at least I know that half of my issues are gone. Although what they don't tell you is you're replacing them with a load more. So to be plunged into the menopause at that age was difficult, and to have no choice but to go on HRT and not feel like I
Mm,
was in control of what I was putting in my body because of the
mm,
risk of osteoporosis, because my menopause would
mm.
last so long. I think that's the thing that I found the most difficult, and feeling like I lost my own self because I feel like my
Yeah.
personality changed so much.
Gosh, I bet that must have been so tough. And it's hard to know how to advocate for yourself as well in that
Definitely.
situation, isn't it? When medical professionals are telling you something,
Yes.
how do you know when it's okay to question something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. And with HRT as well, it's such a trial and error situation.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's very hard to get right. But then again, you
Mm,
know, I'm very grateful that we have the options that we do, and that women like you are opening up our conversation, because it is so important. 'Cause
oh,
this time, you know, 9, 10 years ago, I didn't know who to talk to.
no, that's true. And that conversation was being had, you know, much less, wasn't it? And well, yeah, I
Definitely.
mean, it's amazing that there's a number of women in the public eye, you know, Davina and Carol
Yeah.
Vorderman and a number of others who are really sort of, yeah, speaking out, which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
They're really driving the conversation, aren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah,
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 it's
they are.
wonderful. Well, the campaigns, obviously, that we've just touched on, Rosie, that you've launched and that you've driven are just unbelievable. Like, you've got workplace campaigns, you've got your charity
Mm.
ambassadorships, your
Yeah.
awareness campaigns. Have you ever had a chance to like sit back and reflect and kind of appreciate how much you have
Oh,
done to help others?
oh, that is so nice of you to say. Well, no, I suppose, because I kind of feel like it's something that I just do, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of a really big and important part of my life. And I feel like I think perhaps the disconnect has been there a little bit through some of my time at Hello, which again is why I was
Okay.
keen to move forward into a
Yeah.
place where I am dedicating the majority of my time to inspiring others, because that really, really is my passion in
You
life.
can see that
Um,
and you can hear it when you talk.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I do believe we have a responsibility. Certainly during my career as a journalist, I felt really strongly that, you know, what we have here is really powerful, you know, in this voice to speak to a huge section of
Yeah.
society. And I felt the same with all the other magazines I've worked with. And certainly I first started thinking in depth about this probably at the beginning of my magazine career, when you're putting out a magazine for young
Wow.
girls or teen
Yes.
girls, you know, that are highly sort of impressionable. It's
Hmm.
really important that you're putting out the right kind of content that's going to set them up
Yeah.
for, you know, a stable but also a positive
Hmm.
mindset for their lives, as well as providing them with the correct factual information. And again, you know,
Yeah.
especially with teenage girls, when magazines were almost seen as like your Bible in terms of
Hmm.
navigating sort of adolescence and all
Yeah.
of the things that come with it, boys and relationships and
Mhm.
friendships. There wasn't the internet really to be used
No.
in quite the same way. So, you know, I think it is a lot scarier now, isn't it? Parents with
Yeah.
teenagers and worrying about what they're picking up on smartphones. But certainly magazines, there was that big responsibility there. And I've always felt that as an editor. And I
Hmm.
think really, you know, as an editor, you have to have the best interests of your audience really at heart. And I
Definitely.
also felt that if we can use our platforms to help educate, which is why I'm particularly keen on working with this charity, Educate Not Mutilate, which is an
Yeah.
anti-FGM, female genital mutilation um, company charity, that is obviously a topic that's very difficult to talk about at times. But I met this woman who runs it called Hebo Warder, who's just incredible, and felt like the least that I can do is use our platform to help support you
Oh,
and
yeah.
educate more people so that we might see an end to this practice, you know, within our lifetimes. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I think social media is great for that as well, in
Yeah.
building a community that,
Hmm.
you know, and I'm not so fussed about stats or whatever, you know, I just want to put
Hmm.
out their content that feels authentic to me. Uh,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
it's really nice when you see that there does seem to be an audience for that.
Hmm.
Yeah, to feel like you're
Yeah.
educating at the same time.
I think it's such a contrast, isn't it, to when we were younger and to when,
Mm.
obviously, like you say, that it was your responsibility to kind of educate young girls at the time. So I remember for me, I used to find out stuff about myself by doing the flowchart quizzes. You know, do
Yes.
you do X, Y, and Z?
Exactly.
Yes,
I
it's
know.
going
I remember those.
amazing.
Yeah. They were brilliant, weren't they? Yeah, it's true. And it's so different now. It's like a bombardment of information, basically, and
Yeah,
stories. So
you're right.
I think, you know, certain media brands still do have that credibility in that
Mhm.
space. But that is a big responsibility then on the editors to make sure that
Yes.
they are dispelling the right information.
Hmm. But I think, like you say, I mean, with the rise in social media, it's just been incredible, the way of transforming lives, transforming the
Mm.
way that people absorb things.
Mm.
Obviously, it has its downsides, and we know about that. But I think the way that you are using your platform in particular in order to help other people is just something that's absolutely to be celebrated.
Oh,
And you can just
yeah.
see you
Well,
just love it.
yeah, I really
You can
do.
feel it coming off you.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I really do. I definitely feel like I found where I need to be.
Yes.
But that's taken time. You know, it didn't come easily, as often the best things are. They take hard work, you know,
Yes, they do.
and you
And they
have
take
to
a lot
put
of
in a lot of
self-discovery.
work. They take a lot of self-discipline. Yeah. And it takes work. But it's so rewarding when you get there.
Yeah. So let's chat about your books.
Ah, yeah.
As if you weren't doing enough already. You've recently finished another novel.
Yeah.
Um, and you've said that writing's always been in your blood anyway. Can you remember, was there a particular light bulb moment for you where you kind of just knew that you were destined to be an author?
Mm. Well, I think probably, like lots of people maybe, especially in journalism where we obviously write for a living, I'd always thought I would love to write a novel. And I
Oh,
think my first idea that I had for a novel was a little bit of me trying to write what I thought people might want to hear from a novel, but
mhm.
maybe it wasn't authentic enough to myself. So
Yeah.
actually, when I handed in that synopsis, my literary agent said, "Well, it's a great idea, but is it really you?" kind of thing. And she totally touched the right nerve, in a way.
Okay.
So I was like, "Actually, no, it's not. I'm trying to be what I think an author, should write."
Right.
But
Yeah.
actually, I think when you actually think about writing, it's got to be enjoyable and
Mhm.
it's got to be something that flows from you kind of easily. Because I think if it's so labored, it's probably not falling into place as you
Mhm.
might like, and you might struggle to ever finish it. So we
Yeah.
then hit upon this idea, which my series of books called The Stylist, which
Mhm.
are all set in this kind of showbiz, fashiony world that I was very
Oh,
familiar with because I was
yeah.
working at Hello through the time I wrote the first two books, and I've just finished the third in the series. And they're about a girl. My
Congratulations.
protagonist is called Amber Green, who gets a job assisting a big stylist to the stars. And it goes, the first book is all through awards season, but it's really a coming of age story. It's about her really
Okay.
growing up in this world and learning the power of her own voice and to trust her instincts and also
Mhm.
navigating her first big relationship. So there are lots of different themes going on
Yeah.
against this backdrop of a really fun, glamorous kind of celebrity packed world.
Wow.
And then the final book that I've just finished writing is almost as though fashion has gone 360. And although in the first two books it was about creating flawless looks for the red carpets around the
Right.
world, now Amber is working with a big star. Um, Living in-house with her as part of her in-house team, styling her day to day, but she's encouraging her to be authentic to herself.
Mhm.
Because there's almost a backlash against these perfectly, photoshopped, filtered,
Yeah,
immaculate images, and people want to relate to realness. And
definitely.
so Amber really is almost like a therapist stroke a stylist because he understands that until this woman really is, at peace with who she is and proud of
Mhm.
that, then she's never really going to shine in the most amazing clothes.
Yeah,
It's actually, it's much, she needs to fix what's inside first of all.
definitely.
So, which I think is marks, a trend that we've seen in the years that I've been writing the series. But
Mhm.
it's still lots of fun in it. It's kind of a romantic comedy. And as I say,
Oh,
there's this
wow.
backdrop of navigating her relationship, which has lots of ups and downs. Um,
Mhm.
so, yeah, it's
It
really
it
good
almost
fun.
seems like she's gone on her own
She
journey
has.
of
I know. Funnily
self-discovery.
enough, I've put lots into it, which is reflective of my own journey. I've always seen myself, as Amber's definitely got quite a bit of me in her.
Okay.
And, in the way that she's encouraging this big star to sort of be authentic to herself is definitely, yeah, lent a bit from my experiences over recent years. I think I can't help but be influenced by what's happened in my life.
Yeah, of
I think
course.
sometimes authors or writers feel like we should shy away from that, but absolutely don't,
Yeah.
if you've got some experience, then that's great because you've already done a lot of the research. Then absolutely use it if you feel comfortable to.
Yeah, because they say though, don't they, that the best things that you can write about is things that you know. So if you
Yeah.
can lend a little bit of whether it's experience or opinion or livedness, if that's a word,
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, yeah, there's nothing, truth is stranger than fiction. And
Yeah,
and
isn't it?
I think if you feel comfortable writing about that, and I've always felt extremely lucky as a writer, really, to always have that tool to go to. And certainly I
Yeah.
was big on journaling during the time when I was sort of close to burnout.
Okay.
And those weeks that I had of figuring out how I was going to navigate this and moving into this
Mhm.
next chapter, I journaled loads. And it's so
Right.
useful to be able to put your thoughts down and,
Mhm.
a number of times and work through them. And it's amazing where that thinking then takes you. It
Yeah.
really does help pull you through a
Mhm.
crisis.
Yeah, and I think that when we are at our absolute lowest is when everything is stripped back and we're kind of forced to look within, and that can, as scary as it can feel at the time, it can almost feel like subliminally like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Mm.
And I think until we get to those stages sometimes where we have nowhere else to go but to rise,
Mm.
then it's a really, really powerful place to be. Although it doesn't feel like it at the time, but I want everyone to know
No.
that it does.
Yeah, it does. And I wrote an article earlier this year for the Telegraph talking about my kind of experience of being close to burnout. And
Yeah.
actually, I wrote that article the first time I sat down to write it, I just lost it in tears. I mean, I
Oh,
couldn't, it was like everything was pouring out onto the page. It
yeah.
was like therapy. And then
Hmm.
and then the next time I went to look at it and tweaked it, I was kind of a bit better. And then the third time's fine. And then, I sent it all off, could check it through, and I'd worked through it. And there's
Yes.
definitely some scientific research that has been done about writing things out 4 times, apparently
Ooh,
helps you work through it. So there
okay.
is actual scientific proof in journaling as being a way to help you as a form of therapy, work through really
Amazing.
challenging times,
Yeah.
going right back there to how it felt and reliving it, and then working that through. And then you almost feel like actually it's left, and I'm totally fine talking about it now. In fact, I'm
Hmm.
very happy to.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have done that, I don't think, if I hadn't had that writing commission to actually
Yeah.
put it all down. It was so
Definitely.
cathartic.
Oh,
Yeah.
bless you.
Yeah.
Is there a midlife book coming soon?
Yeah, well, possibly. Yeah, because so my Be Kind book is the first non-fiction book that I've written. And I wrote that, it came out just after the pandemic, well, in 2021. So we were still just coming out of it, really, at the end of that year. And that is all about, it's full of little tips and words of inspiration and little tools all around the concept of kindness and what it means. And
Yeah.
that is in terms of kindness to yourself. So, what self-compassion means, how to
Yeah.
treat yourself with the same kind of care as you might treat your closest friends,
Hmm.
and then kindness to one another and to kindness to the planet. So that book
Oh,
is going to be coming out again in paperback. It came out in hardback then. It's coming out in paperback in October. It's exciting. The new cover,
amazing.
it looks really lovely and it's at an affordable price point. I think it will be like £6 or something. So it's a nice
Oh, wow.
little luxury. It makes a good gift for somebody as well. And
Definitely.
then I'm looking at a book to follow that. But I've got to get the novel out of the way first and to not overload
Mhm.
myself. And I'm still
Definitely.
on that journey, I think. So I think it will be a follow-up to the Be Kind book. Um,
Right.
and it will be more around that self-compassion and how to
Mhm.
tune into that really authentic you in midlife.
Yeah,
'Cause
definitely.
midlife is a time for so many different changes in life, from
Absolutely.
kids growing up, career changes, divorce rates,
Mhm.
peak around this time, parents getting elderly and lots of
Yeah,
midlifers are also carers. Just it's almost like a melting pot, as well as our well-being,
really.
menopause, all these other things going on.
Mhm.
And sometimes, we put our own well-being at the very bottom of the pile because we
Yeah.
are caring for all these other people and all these other
Mhm.
situations. So I really want to help midlife women be able to feel that actually it's, self-care isn't a vanity, it's actually essential for
Definitely.
your sanity. Yeah.
Yeah,
But sometimes we
100%.
don't know how to do that. What does it mean? Does that mean having a bath, or lighting a candle? Well, it can mean those things, but ultimately it's probably a bit deeper than that and really learning how to tune into the authentic you and
Yeah,
asking her what she needs. So the book will kind of take you through how to do that, but
definitely.
it's
So
still very much a work in progress.
yeah, I think we've been very conditioned though, haven't we? Almost like to be this stoic
Yeah.
person that has to kind of keep going, keep taking on more responsibilities.
Mm,
And I don't think midlife women specifically, I don't think we've really ever given ourselves the permission
mm,
to.
Yeah.
allow ourselves
Yeah.
to be
And
cared
we have
about the
to
same way that
ask
we care about others.
where that pressure has come from. Has it been from ourselves? Has it been a societal expectation?
I'm not sure.
Excuse me. I think we'll find a lot of the time it's come from ourselves. And
Yes.
actually, we haven't known how to put healthy boundaries into our life because it's
Mhm.
something you're taught. How are you going to know this unless somebody helps you? And I certainly have admired like women that I know who I would say have healthy boundaries, and their
Yeah.
no is a no and their yes almost means more when they say yes because they really mean it. Whereas, like many of us have become yes people and we just try and do it all, but actually, that doesn't help anybody if we're not doing all of it really well. And I
Mhm.
definitely learned that lesson the hard way. And now I'm much better at saying no and really trying
Yeah.
to keep the focus on the things that I know are really important for me to do, for me and my family and my own health.
Definitely, because people say that no is a complete sentence, and I had heard that a lot, but I'd
Yeah.
never really truly known what it meant until
Yeah.
I had a breakdown back in last year,
Oh
beginning of
gosh.
last year,
Yeah.
and it's very much like it kind of forces you to reevaluate everything.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting um,
Yeah. And
to reflect.
what changes did you make as a result of that time?
I decided to start asking myself some questions about what it was that I wanted out of life, where I was lacking in joy, and where I could then get that from, and really kind of work through things because I have complex PTSD, which had never been dealt with. And then a number of different situations happened. And then I had a breakdown. Um, and then I have a condition called functional neurological disorder where I have
Mhm.
seizures, but they come in times of stress. But that is what led me to sell my product business
Um,
and move into mentoring because I
mm,
wanted to be like you, the person that I needed at that
yes.
time.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So often it does highlight where there is that sort of gap in support,
Definitely.
doesn't it? Was that hard for you to navigate that changeover? Difficult to sell the business, or did you feel absolutely by that point it was the right thing to do?
I think I'd made up my mind. I think
Yeah.
I'd been given signs for a long time, like you
Mhm.
said, that something wasn't quite right and that I needed to stop, but I hadn't heeded it. And I kept
Yeah.
doing what we always do as women and just keep your head down, keep going. But yeah, but my brain just switched off for me,
Oh
unfortunately.
gosh, I'm
But
so
I'm so
sorry.
grateful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. And I likewise think of my breakdown as a breakthrough now because it helped me move
Totally.
into this new chapter.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. Oh, Rosie, honestly, I wish I had like another
oh,
hour with you.
I know.
But just quickly, have you ever been in a situation where you've kind of just stood there for like a millisecond, looked around the room and thought, "My goodness, this is my life. How is this my life?"
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm starting to feel that recently, and especially on
Are
a
you?
Friday, which is the day when we normally send the hello off to press. And it was like
Okay.
the busiest day, and I'd be at my screen all day sorting out all the pages. And now on a
Yeah.
Friday, I like to have the day off when I can, or I just do
Mhm.
a couple of meetings and like to do something really nice, even if that's just going for a run
Oh,
on my own or going for a walk and really appreciating it and thinking, God, I have reinvented my life. I've done
oh,
it, or my career.
yeah.
And like today, I'll zip off and pick up the kids from school, and
Mhm.
I sometimes feel like I'm really naughty, like I'm skiving from something. And I have to remind myself, no, you've earned this, you have
Yeah.
navigated this so that you have a better balance. I mean, I
Mhm.
still have lots of work commitments, and I love that. So I love being
Yeah,
busy, but it does feel there's a difference between being busy and being stressed, and it's
of
much more on
course.
my terms doing only the stuff I love.
Yeah, because you can see that in you. You can see that you feel in control of the choices that you've made in the way that your
Yeah,
life is
that's
structured
it.
now.
Rather than your job controlling you. Exactly. It's
Definitely.
getting back to a place where you feel like you've got this. And it is possible. And it's not easy though, but support is out there. So
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. And it's about talking to people.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
don't,
opening up. I'm not being
yeah,
afraid to say, look, I'm struggling, because we
mhm,
all struggle, which is why I
yeah,
felt it was really important to share my own story. Because I think if you'd follow me on social media, you might just thought I'm nailing everything, but actually
yeah,
the reality was very different to that. I was finding
mhm,
it hard to keep my head above water.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the more people that come out and talk about this, the less alone
Yeah,
we're going to feel.
absolutely. Totally. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Rosie.
Oh,
It's been an
you are
absolute
welcome,
pleasure.
Michelle. It was really nice to talk to you. Thank
It's been
you.
great. Well, I'll pop your links below.
Yeah,
Yes,
super.
and
Thank you.
people
Yeah,
can
feel
go
free
and
to
buy your
tag
book.
me when you post it and everything.
Yes, I will do.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you're in a much